in the lawsuit that Drake has filed against UMG. And I just think we need to talk about it, not because it's salacious, which it is, but because of the potential impacts that this may have on hip hop culture, on rap culture in particular, and on our capacity for free expression. Now, I just want to remind you all that we are already seeing a tension between prosecutors who are attempting to use hip hop lyrics as evidence in criminal court cases. Now, there may be a wide variety of opinions on this. We do know that there is a genre, a subgenre of rap music that has become known in parts, for those of us who don't necessarily pay as close attention, how can I describe this? Has become known for being used as a space where you could mention someone's name and essentially put out like a lyrical hit on them, right? Like there is a sub genre of that music where that is something that is happening. It's a part of the culture, but and for me, and maybe it's because I'm older, I put this out on like the fringe of the culture, right? The primary element of the culture is not that. And the primary element of the culture is it takes in all of the historical understandings and formulations that we recognize and appreciate about hip hop culture. And when it comes to rap battles, y'all know I have said before, I'm not personally a fan of rap battles. I don't like playing the dozens either. So I'm just, let me take it back a bit. Long ago when I was a little kid, my mama didn't let us talk bad about our siblings. Right? Like we weren't allowed to say shut up. We weren't allowed to, say mean words to each other. We couldn't call each other names. We couldn't disrespect each other. And if we said something disrespectful about one another, that was considered a put down. And every put down, you had to give 3 put ups. Now, it seems corny, and it definitely seemed corny as a little kid. Because have you had siblings before? Hello. But I appreciate now as an adult the way that my mother raised us, because she felt and feels that there is already so much messaging about how negative the world sees us that you couldn't also have that in the home, right? You can't have your home, your safe space, which is supposed to be your space of refuge. You can't also have to confront that sort of messaging at home. And for her, proactive statements of love, she was a very kissy, huggy kind of mama. I'm not the most kissy, huggy kind of people. I was her firstborn child. And so she always tells this story about how she would try to hold me and kissy. I'd be like, top it, mommy, top it. No more kisses. Cause I'm still that way. I'm not the most touchy feely kind of person. Not to say I'm not mad at a hug but that's just not my part of my makeup. But when it came to the words that we used, she is one of them people. She was a missionary. My daddy was a preacher. Like, they believe that the power of life and death was in the tongue. They believe that you have what you say. They believe that you speak and a thing is created. So if you're going to use the power of your speech to tear someone down, for them, that was like an affront. That was an affront. I should say for us, because it's a view that I have adopted and I have embraced. So right off the bat, I'm not personally, not to say that you should not be, but personally for me, I'm not a fan of rap battles, of beef-driven rap battles. Now, good, back and forth freestyle where it's just wordplay, that's cool. But like when it's beef-driven, to me, that's potentially dangerous, right? And we've seen how that can escalate and go wrong in a whole lot of ways. So when the whole controversy happened, I remember being in the studio and be like, "Ooh, that was hard," or "Ooh," and like I remember having conversations about it, even with the team, and talking about the fact that like this is, I'm not gonna say nothing about this, but clearly this was a TKO. Like clearly that was, "Oh, did you hear what so and so said? Oh, and that song came out and it was back to back," and so. I'm not saying that I don't like rap battles as a way of excusing my participation in the culture of it. Not at all, because I'm not gonna point the finger and not act like I have all my ish together. I definitely don't. I love a good juicy session as much as anybody else. But so those are my tensions. I just wanted to put that out there so y'all know where I'm coming from, so that we can be clear about why it is that this raises concerns for me that go beyond the traditional who won this particular round of the battle. All right. So there's a number of articles that have been written about this, but the one I'm using today for this conversation is one that just came out. It's been New York Times. Drake sues his label, calling Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us defamatory. Now that's the part where I'm like, this is slightly different. This is slightly different. In a federal lawsuit on Wednesday, Drake accused Universal Music Group, UMG, of putting his life and reputation at risk by releasing and promoting the popular diss track, Not Like Us, right? And there's been this sort of recognition of, the back and forth where, Drake and Kendrick were going, shooting back and forth verbally, verbal assault on, who's the realest one, who's the phoniest one, who's a hypocrite, who's not, who's been abusive, who hasn't. And those allegations, and you know what, let me not call them allegations, that's a legal term. Those accusations, right, because defamatory is a legal term, allegations is a legal term. They have a particular distinct approach to an issue that we don't necessarily use in common parlance. But the accusations, they went back and forth, right? Like Drake said things, Kendrick said things. It was like, ooh, ooh, ooh. I mean, my family group chat was in an uproar over it because we understand it. We get it. The challenge, however, is that in Kendrick's songs, his punchlines discuss things like pedophilia, accusations that Drake is a certified lover boy, certified pedophile. And Drake his legal team is essentially saying that these are words that are insidious, they're defamatory, and they have real world consequences. Now, defamation in the legal community is a big deal. Like it's a type of lawsuit that can cost a whole lot of money. And defamation is essentially defined as any false information that harms the reputation of a person, business, or organization. Defamation includes both libel and slander. And libel is typically what we're using when we're talking about defamatory statements that are published or broadcast. And slander is more like verbal defamatory statements that can be fleeting. In this case, because the statements that were made as a part of a song, it has a sense of permanency to it, which kind of blends both libel and slander. So for this purpose, we're just going to use the overarching umbrella of defamation, which is, again, false information that harms the reputation of a person, business, or organization. Now, with that definition, couldn't all rap battles be considered potentially defamatory? Like if that's the allegation that is being made in this lawsuit, that the statements that Kendrick Lamar made in his rhymes about Drake were false and that they harmed his reputation, then that means that essentially any sort of future rap battle or back and forth discourse that includes allegations that may or may not be true is also potential grounds for a defamation lawsuit. Now, in order to win a defamation lawsuit, you got to prove a couple things. You can't just say, oh, you said that shit about me and you lied. You're a lying liar who lies. It requires more than that. It requires more than that. If you are going to file a lawsuit that says a statement is defamatory, you have to show that the statement was published, which means that it was read or viewed by at least one other person. And we know that, this song did millions, numbers in the millions. So obviously the statement was published. You have to identify who said it. Right. And so we know who said it. These are Kendrick songs, like he said it. And you have to show that it harmed your reputation. It crushed the fun out of Drake's reputation. Like, you got little kids. My daughter, and when she was in the 5th grade, because this was like last year, little kid parties where they were screaming, they not like us, they not like us. Like, didn't even, and then I think there was a Kids Bop version of Not Like Us as well. I got to double check that. But they clearly, there was harm to the reputation. Like his capacity to be seen in the same light as a serious music maker, I think he could have, had he just laid low and come back with a banging ass album, it'd have been cool because people rock with Drake. Like, let's not front like they don't. I think a lot of his music has gotten to be much more aimed at impressing other men over the past, few cycles. He used to make music that was very appreciated, I think, by a lot of women in the culture. But now it feels like he's definitely, like, his audience is more male. And I'm personally not as much of a fan, but people would have rocked with him again. Had he put out another album, people would have rocked with it, and it had been good. People been rocking with Drake. Drake got like 50 billion albums. I don't know how many albums he's got, but people rock with his music. So, but if you can establish that the statement was published, you know who said it, you can establish that it harmed your reputation. The next element is that the statements that were made were false. Right? The statement has to be incapable of proving true or false. It has to be, it's not just pure opinion. Like, you could say, so-and-so is a terrible boss. Like, right? Like, that's your opinion. But if you're making a statement of fact, then that could be considered defamatory. Now, interestingly enough, because I went back to like my defamation law, like copyright, trademark, and infringement laws, like 101. Because I'm trying to make sure, I was like, I don't think, because this is not my area of law. I'm a civil rights person. But according to one of the articles that I was reading, to remember some of these elements, they say the rhetorical hyperbole or statements that cannot be reasonably understood as stating an actual fact are not defamatory, right? If you said Jane is a terrible boss, that's one thing. But if you said Jane is a terrible boss because she stole money from her employees and does crack lines in the bathroom, though, like that's different, right? Like that goes from opinion to making statements of fact that are false. And there had to be some level of malice, right? Essentially. So that's what you essentially have to be able to establish. But if the person you're accusing is a public official, it's a lot more difficult because when you're a member of the public, the idea is that you anticipate people are going to talk ish about you. You anticipate these things. If you're a public figure, it's a little more difficult to establish. But if the statement is true, then it's not defamatory. If the statement is true. And so when I saw that they had amended the lawsuit, and on Wednesday they filed in federal court, Aubrey Drake Graham sues Universal Music Group, who is a record company that has backed, both of these men are on the UMG label. Drake sues UMG for defamation and harassment because he says that the release and the promotion of the song Not Like Us is an example. This is a direct quote. Is an example of, quote, valuing corporate greed over the safety and well-being of its artists. And I thought, Drake, why on earth would you think that a music company would not value corporate greed over the safety and well-being of the artist? Have you met the American music industry? That seemed like, I was like, what? That can't be right. But it's there. It's actually a quote. The suit was brought in the Southern District of New York, and it accuses UMG of having, quote, approved, published, and launched a campaign to create a viral hit out of a rap track that was, quote, intended to convey the specific, unmistakable, and false allegation that Drake is a criminal pedophile and to suggest that the public should start to resort to vigilante justice in response. They referenced the cover art image of the Not Like Us album because, it had the picture of the house. I believe this is his house in Toronto, which I don't know that it was news to everybody that was his house. But, they had the little circles on it that made it look like pedophile. Because, if you go to there's websites you can go to find sex offenders, and they will tell you where the sex offenders live in your community. And so the image for the artwork makes it look like it's a whole bunch of pedophiles living up in Drake's house. Obviously not good for one's reputation. But really clever. Really clever. 866-801-8255, 866-801-TALK. So this is the background. But the challenge that I have here is that UMG, this isn't the challenge, but UMG, let me go further. UMG responds to the claims. He says that they are untrue, they're illogical, and they're illogical because of the past practices and behaviors that Drake himself has also participated in. UMG says the following: we have invested massively in his music, and our employees around the world, this is a direct quote, our employees around the world have worked tirelessly for many years to help him, Drake, achieve historic commercial and personal financial success. Throughout his career, Drake has intentionally and successfully used UMG to distribute his music and poetry to engage in conventionally outrageous back and forth, quote, rap battles, unquote, to express his feelings about other artists. We're going to come back to that line in just a second. He now seeks to weaponize the legal process to silence an artist's creative expression and to seek damages from UMG for distributing that artist's music. I want to go back to this line. UMG says that Drake has also used their services to distribute his music and poetry to, here's the part, engage in conventionally outrageous back and forth rap battles. Quote unquote rap battles. The phrase rap battles, that's in quotes. To me, 866-801-8255, when I read that, I was like, okay, so they know that the rap battles aren't real. They call them conventionally outrageous. To me, it felt a little diminutive. I might have been reading too much into it. But he now seeks to use the legal process to silence an artist's creative expression. I think this is going to potentially be, it could, and if this goes away, it goes away, but there is some legal potentiality here for underlining some of the very bases upon which the rap battle culture actually relies. Let's get some of your voices on the line. Oh, they dropped. What happened to the calls? Oh my gosh, there were calls I was going to get them, and they dropped. Okay, never mind. We'll keep going. Are the phones are good? Okay. All right. So call back if you can call back. Sorry if your call dropped. Universal is saying that they're going to fight the case, of course. And they said that they want to protect any artist who might directly or indirectly become a frivolous litigation target for having done nothing more than write a song. So that's the legal background. Here's why I feel like this is a concern that goes beyond Drake and Kendrick. Because all rap battle, from my understanding, as someone who's already outlined for you that I don't dabble in the rap battle end of the culture as much. But from my perspective, and please let me know if a sister is wrong, because these are just some thoughts. Isn't all battle rap about lyrical attack? Like, isn't that sort of the nature of the culture of battle rappage? I feel like if one is a battle rapper, or one is going to partake in a rap that is battle-natured, then the idea of using oh my God, somebody, I got to stay out of Nubia. That image that you just posted is terribly, wonderfully on point. But if you are going to engage in rap battles, then the idea is to engage in lyrical attacks. No one, to my knowledge, and maybe, again, I'm just not as much a part of the culture as I need to be, but no one, to my knowledge, has ever essentially said that the battle rapping lyrics, no one has ever said that they have to be true to the extent that they could pass muster in a court of law. Like, for example, we got whole ass grown men in their 40s and 50s still doing rap battles about slinging that rock and carrying that thing on them, who live in gated communities and ain't slung a rock since the rock slung them out the hood. It's not, it's all fiction, which is one of the reasons that a lot of parents have issue with the way that these messages are sort of promulgated through the music, because our kids listen to it and think it's real until they grow up a little bit, assuming they get the chance to and don't get caught up in the culture to their own detriment. But since when did rap battle lyrics have to be true to pass muster in a court of law? And if this is where Drake is going, if he were to win this lawsuit, I am concerned about the precedent that this sets. Not because I want to preserve some sort of sanctity around battle rappage. I know that's not a word, but I just like saying it. But because if this is true, or if he wins this lawsuit, and we already have prosecutors in multiple cases that are using rap lyrics as evidence to criminally prosecute artists, then I feel like if Drake wins this suit and it potentially destroys a form of black music that he has not only profited from, that he has participated in as a cultural outsider, having been bested by a cultural native, one Kendrick, and I'm not saying Drake ain't black, I'm saying he is not a black American who is a part of the organic formulation of this culture. And this is not about, I got to be careful how I say this because I don't want a whole bunch of other folks calling out other issues. The reality is Drake was invited into the culture and was able to participate as someone who did not grow up in a black American household. And if he, a cultural visitor who has been able to participate and profit from the culture, is now upset that a cultural native beat him at the native's game, and now he's going to take it to the law, to the courts to shut it down, isn't that very colonial? Like, isn't that literally what colonizers do? I don't know. And I'm struggling with this because it feels like a setup for a further opportunity to attack a form of black music that, again, I personally don't enjoy, but I respect the right for us to have. Let's get some of your calls.